All right, hello class. Welcome to African American History. This is History 110. This is your Professor Brant Ellsworth. And this is a introduction to the course video. The purpose of this video is to give you a general sense of where this class is going and what are we taking as our guiding principles, what is our central tenets that we hope to accomplish in this course. To help do so, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to read an excerpt from a speech that was delivered in 1852. This was delivered by Frederick Douglass in Rochester, New York. Now, in this instance, Frederick Douglass is himself a freed slave. He freed himself, escaping from bondage when he was a teenager, and then devoted much of his life to fighting for the abolition of others. And so in this speech in 1852, Douglass has been invited to New York to speak on the 4th of July. And he has been asked to talk about what does the 4th of July mean to a black man. And Frederick Douglass, to his credit, denies this invitation, right? These are his friends, his colleagues. He denies the invitation and instead agrees to come on the following day, July 5th, 1852. And this is what he says. It's a 3-hour speech. I'm just going to read a 2-minute segment of it. He says, and I quote, "Fellow citizens, pardon me and allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I or those I represent to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? Am I, therefore, called upon to bring our humble offering to the national altar and to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude for the blessings resulting from from your independence to us?" Now here, when he's using this term us, now he is clearly speaking about African Americans. He's talking about the freed and the enslaved African Americans in this time in 1852. He's asking, why are you having me come to speak to you about independence? Doesn't that seem a bit odd? Right? A country that is enslaving my people. Independence, really. He goes on, "Would to God, both for your sakes and ours, that an affirmative answer could be truthfully returned to these questions, but such is not the state of the case. I say it with a sad sense of the disparity between us. I am not included within this pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters or in chains into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems were inhuman mockery and sacrilegious irony. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me by asking me to speak today? What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than any other days of the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy license, your national greatness swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciations of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence. Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impropriety, and hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation of the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour. Go where you may, search where you will, roam through all the monarchies and despotisms of the old world, travel through South America, search out every abuse, and when you have found the last, lay your facts by the side of the everyday practices of this nation, and you will say with me that for revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy, America reigns without a rival. This is Frederick Douglass, 1852. And here in this speech, Frederick Douglass is clearly outlining what I believe is to be the central tenet of American past. It is that the American past has been built upon the service, the shoulders, the lives, the sacrifice, the blood, the abuse of our African American colleagues, our friends. It is the African American experience which has in many ways established America. It has helped grow America to be the economy that it is. It helped bring America into the 19th and 20th centuries. And today, in 2017, 2018, as we look back and as we consider what America is, the history of our past is often told through a sense of, through a whitened lens. This idea that the American past owes its past to the sacrifices and the contributions made by white Americans, in many ways does a disservice to the contributions made by African Americans. Now, many African American scholars have suggested that having a course or field of study specifically labeled African American history in many ways belittles the very purpose of a course on African American history. I remember listening to a Morgan Freeman 60-minute special when he surprisingly said, "I don't want a Black History Month." He called on the interviewer, "When is your White History Month? When is your Jewish History Month?" I don't want a Jewish history or a Black History Month. Black history is American history. And that, class, is the purpose of this class, is to help you understand that African American history should not be a separate field of study, that African American history is American history. That to study one without the other would be to do a disservice to the first. So this course, we will be looking specifically at the experiences of African Americans. We'll begin in early Africa, and we will look and see how Africans were brought to this country. What was it like in the Middle Passage as Africans were pushed and smushed into these giant boats, where they were brought to Brazil and South America, to the Caribbean, and to Southern America. We'll look at their experiences in the world of slavery. We'll see how some were able to fight for and find freedom. We will look at the differences between Southern and Northern Black experience. We'll look at the fight for abolition, and we'll look at some of those early abolitionists, their writing, their arguments, often in the name of religion and in God, arguing against the institution of slavery. We will look at the beginnings, the driving force behind the Civil War, being slavery, and we'll understand more about how the North and South came to understand slavery in its centrality to their cause. We will look at the post-Civil War era, often referred to as Reconstruction. It is this era that I believe most closely mirrors what we see in America today. A period in which, after a great step forward, America seems to be taking steps backwards in terms of equality, in terms of freedom. We'll be looking at the 13th, the 14th, the 15th Amendments. We'll be looking at the Emancipation Proclamation. We'll be studying the works of the Supreme Court, both to expand the rights for African Americans and to contract the rights of African Americans. Moving into the 20th centuries, we will look at the works of artists and music. We'll look at boxers like Jack Johnson, sports stars like Jackie Robinson. We will look at the music that comes out of the Harlem Renaissance. And then we will pave the way for the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s, where we will study the works and the lives of men like Martin Luther King and understand the mission of men like Malcolm X, before bringing it more into the present day, looking at the war on drugs and the vast number of African American men which today find themselves behind bars. We will connect this with the past, looking at the history of violence to the black body, looking at slavery and lynchings. We'll look at the prisoner work release program, which was popular in the South after the Civil War, by which African American men were charged with frivolous crimes and essentially sold back into bondage, where they would work off their crimes, and in a form not much different than that of slavery. And then we will, of course, look at the present day, and we'll look at the presidency of Barack Obama. We'll look at this spate of police brutalities and again connect it with the past. And we'll try to better understand why America is taking so many steps backwards in terms of race, as we see in the recent rise of white nationalists and in a new wave of the KKK, to try to better understand the place of race in the African American experience in America. My name is Brant Ellsworth. I will be your professor. I look forward as you join me in this journey. Please, if you have questions regarding the material, if you would like more help understanding it, getting a sense of its significance, please do not hesitate to email me or contact me, and let's engage in dialogue. All right. Thank you and welcome to this course, History 110, African American History.